Hello, everyone. Welcome to Workshop Wednesdays. I am Chanel Power, founder and CEO of Mentor Me Collective. I am so excited to see you all here tuned in live. Please go ahead and tell a friend, share with a friend, anyone who is excited about user experience, healthcare, women's health, feminine health. We are here to provide an incredible workshop with an incredible tech titan as well. Again, let us know where you all are tuning in from. We're super excited to have you here. Again, this month's theme is Tech Your Wellness. And today we're focusing on how technology can address significant health challenges. So as you're settling in, please drop a heart emoji in the chat to show your support for innovation in health and well-being. And for those of you who are new to Mentor Me Collective, we are a community dedicated to empowering individuals, first gen specifically, with knowledge, skills, and confidence needed to pursue their careers in tech. We obviously want to make sure that they have what they need when it comes to their incredible career, mentorship, education, and of course, community. So welcome. My name again is Chanel. I am the founder of Mentor Me Collective. And I'm honored to be your host for today. I know you all see sprinkles of me here, there, and everywhere. So excited to be here with you all today. So today we're diving into solving reproductive health challenges through UX research and technology. We're going to be exploring how user-centered design and innovation can be leveraged to tackle pressing issues in reproductive health in areas that often deserves more attention and focus. We know that there are reproductive disorders like uterine fibroids and endometriosis. I hope I'm even saying that right, but we're going to get Michelle going to get me together. That affects at least 20 million women worldwide. So leading to obviously various symptoms that result in the delay of diagnosis and obviously inadequate treatment. So today we are going to learn on how to be thoughtful in UX research and technology and how that can help us with paving the way for better patient care. Now, let me introduce our star of this evening, Miss Michelle In. Michelle is a seasoned UX and UI designer with an impressive 18 years of experience in tech. She's worked with prestigious organizations as Goldman Sachs, the New York Times, the United Nations, and Chief. She's driven by a passion for mission-driven startups and nonprofits. And she is the founder of Neuemoon Health, a femtech startup dedicated to improving patient care for endometriosis. I feel like I'm totally butchering that. So we have to Uno reverse that back. But anyway, and fibroids. Michelle is also a Google Women Tech Maker ambassador, as am I. So we are sisters. Okay, we are twin flames in that. She's also a certified yoga instructor, showcasing her deep commitment to holistic well-being. So without further yapping, I want to introduce the woman of the hour, Miss Michelle.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chanel, for having me today.
I'm so happy to have you here as well. So please, how do I say it? Because I feel like I'm totally butchering it. Endometry.
I know it's such a hard word, endometriosis.
Oh yes,
Yeah, you
absolutely.
got it. Yeah.
Endometriosis. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Amazing. So, Michelle, before we dive into this wonderful topic, I definitely want to break the ice with a question. If the impact of your work in femtech was a form of positive change in the world, what kind of change would it be and why?
Oh, my goodness. I think, if you look back in women's health, I mean, women aren't even allowed to participate in like medical research until the 90s. I mean, there's just so much systemic problems, and the only hope that I would have is to bring awareness using technology. Like that's all I could hope for. Um, I could not claim to, I don't think anyone can claim to disrupt
Mm,
medicine,
mm.
especially something so with such a systemic problem like women's health.
That is
Yeah.
amazing and very beautiful. And so definitely want to just give space to the chat. What's one area within healthcare where you believe technology could make a positive and a significantly positive difference? Definitely feel free to share your thoughts. I know obviously Michelle is doing incredible work in the feminine tech space, so 10 out of 10 there. And so as the folks are, kind of dropping in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and bring up your slides. And we just want to say again, thank you for being here and over to you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. Yeah, really hoping that I think, now with AI, I think there's a lot of opportunities. But let's dive into what user research can do with technology, because we really do need to understand the problems using user research before we slap any technology on top of a problem. And this is what we're going to talk about today. So, so let me take you a journey of a girl. Her name is Kendra, and she started having menstrual pain when she was in school. And it's just painful and heavy, and it will make her miss classes and after school activities and fun with her friends. And however, when she brings it up to her parents and family doctors, pediatricians, they would just say it's all normal. This is part of being a woman. And so she kind of grew up thinking that's normal. And fast forward, she enters the workforce, and despite her being very hardworking employees, unfortunately, because of her pain and her menstrual cycle, she has to take times off from work, and getting passed over for promotions, etc. And when she mentioned it to her gynecologist, unfortunately, she got prescribed birth control and painkillers, and that's it. And then fast forward, when she's ready to start a family, despite trying for many years, unfortunately, they're unable to conceive. And when they finally go to see a infertility specialist and they dig a little bit further into her health, they found out that her uterus are actually filled with large fibroids and severe form of endometriosis and adenomyosis. And she was told that unfortunately hysterectomy is the only option. And that kind of ended her dream of becoming a mother. And unfortunately, this is like Chanel mentioned, this is not a rare diseases that we're talking about. When we talk about fibroids, actually 1 in 4 women would develop fibroids in their lives. And it takes 3.6 years to get diagnosed. And typically, women lose 5 hours a week due to fibroids, having to take time off from work, and it's costing our economy $34 billion USD. And when it comes to endometriosis, it is affecting 1 in 10 women. It takes almost 8 to 12 years, 10 years on average to get a diagnosis. And women typically take 11 hours off from work per week, and it's costing our economy $22 billion. And adenomyosis is kind of like a cousin of endometriosis, where instead of the tissue, instead of being outside, is infiltrating in the uterus. And of course, let me mention fibroids are basically benign growth, kind of like benign cancer, if you will, in the uterus. So just want to do a quick poll on everyone. You can enter on the chat. If yes or no, do you regularly see an OBGYN? Do you go see OBGYN every year? So if you can put in a chat to say yes or no. And another quick poll is, when you go see your OBGYN, do you know what kind of symptoms to mention to them? Like, do you know what to say to them when you go see your OB? So for educational purpose, like what exactly are, like, okay, so we know fibroids are benign tumors, we know endometriosis and adenomyosis are, the tissue linings elsewhere in the body. But what does that actually mean? What kind of symptoms do they actually cause on our body? Number one is heavy bleeding, which often lead to anemia. Typically, that happens very often. Um, Severe pain, and when it comes to endometriosis, the pain might be non-cyclic, meaning that it might happen outside of our menstrual cycles. Painful intercourse. Stomach bulge. Sometimes the fibroid is so big that you see like physically like a lump in your stomach, and endometriosis often cause what is called like endobelly. It has like very bloated, um, frequent urination, or even bowel movement, or painful urination and bowel movement, and lastly, infertility. So now we know, okay, so we know these are quite serious problems. We know it's affecting a lot of people. So I was very interested to dig in some user research to learn more about, like, what do people actually experience and feel, and what are the obstacles, right? So these are the three research objectives that I set for myself, to really understand the challenges that patients face from diagnosis to ongoing management. When we talk about, it takes like 3.6 years to get a diagnosis for fibroids and 10 years for endometriosis. Like, what does that even mean? Um, Secondly, evaluate gaps in patient awareness. For example, we saw in Kendra's case, she got dismissed by her parents very early on. When she went to see her OB, she got dismissed again, just was given birth control and painkillers. Like, what exactly is going on, right? And lastly, identify obstacles that healthcare providers actually face when they're providing care. So the research methods are broken into the quantitative and qualitative method. And for quantitative method, um, I did posts on Facebook support groups. So I joined various uterine fibroids and endometriosis and adenomyosis support groups, and also questionnaires and quizzes, and I put some, like, $10 in, and push it into like a Facebook meta ad campaign to get people to fill out some questionnaires. And then secondly, for qualitative research, I did a one-on-one 30 to 60 minutes interview. So let's break down what we found in quantitative interviews. So when we talk about the awareness, 90% of women said they had never heard of uterine fibroids until they got their own diagnosis. 10% said they heard it from their family, like maybe their mom had it, their grandma, their aunts, and so they kind of knew, like they heard of the term fibroids, and oftentimes they would say, they heard about them because like maybe their elders had to get a hysterectomy back in the days. And then 0%, nobody said they learned anything about fibroids or endometriosis from school. And when we talk about the barriers to care for fibroids, again, 47% said doctors dismissing symptoms as a barrier, and 14% said self-normalizations as a barrier for care. And very similarly for endometriosis, is 50% for doctor's dismissal and 22% for self-normalizations. Negative effects, 72% said painful symptoms, 16% said infertility, and surgical outcome, like it's because unfortunately there's no clear medical treatment, meaning non-surgical treatment. For surgical outcome, 80% actually said they will see improvements. Unfortunately, 19% said symptoms will reoccur, and 20% said surgery doesn't have any effect for endometriosis. And the reason why we are focusing on endometriosis for the last two stats is because fibroids tend to be like an easier condition to for like surgical outcome. For example, it's kind of like you cut it out and then it's gone. Endometriosis is a little bit tricky to treat. And adenomyosis, the only treatment is a hysterectomy, partial hysterectomy. So for qualitative research, we interviewed 70 people, a mixture of patients, healthcare providers, researchers, and advocacy groups. And within healthcare providers, we interview primary care, the OBGYN, so like that's the ones that you see annually. Fertility specialists, so those are the ones that would do your IUIs and IVFs for any treatments. Mix and endofibroid subspecialty, they tend to be the surgeons, so they receive special treatments. Mix stand for minimally invasive gynecologic surgery, so they are specially trained to treat endometriosis and fibroids, so they don't typically deliver babies versus the general OBGYN, they're the one who deliver babies. Pelvic floor physical therapist and also behavioral therapist. So you don't need to read this, but this is basically a journey map that we try to map out like exactly what does a patient go through, and the line is an emotional state, so anything that's below the line is basically she's in a negative state. Anything above, it's like a happy state for her. As you can see, she's kind of going back and forth. There's a lot of touch points with different doctors, different things happening, but she's kind of going nowhere, and a lot of it is in a negative state. So to summarize, like what do we find out from the qualitative research is that number one, patient care quality is very physician dependent. 10% of the interviewees said that they were diagnosed, only 10% said they were diagnosed by their first OBGYNs, meaning that 90% of them had to see other doctors, other OBGYNs to get an answer. Patients that they're not educated on the diagnosis by their physicians, oftentimes they get a diagnosis and that's it. Like they were told they have fibroids and they don't know what it is. Physicians just never explain to them what they are. Patients say that they aren't made aware of the full spectrum of the treatment options available, meaning that they never really explain, you could do this or this or this, and these are the pros and cons of different treatments. They tend to have like a very narrow view given by the physicians, and they aren't really given the whole view until they see maybe multiple physicians. They also say that they see that different physicians have a very inconsistent approach, meaning that some of them will do ultrasound, some of them don't. Most likely, they actually don't do ultrasound. Some of them do pelvic exam, like they manual exam, touch your belly, or do internal exam. Some of them don't. And that really, even within the specialists in the same hospital, meaning that the doctors have offices next to one another in the same department, they can have completely different approach to diagnosing a patient during a visit. And the last point is that this is actually by physicians. We find out from physicians that their approach and attitudes towards diagnosing these conditions are shaped by who they were trained under. And so that kind of explains why things are quite inconsistent, even though they work in the same hospital system. And the second point is there is a disconnect between the generalists, like the OBGYNs, the ones who we see annually and who deliver our babies, and the subspecialists, the surgeons. So because OBGYN tend to be more passionate about OB, they're very passionate about delivering babies and maternal health, which is great. So they tend to view things that quote unquote don't kill patients, like fibroids, endometriosis, and adenomyosis as not something that they want to investigate or they want to spend time on. Lack of proper trainings. A lot of them are not well versed about these conditions, again, because of their focus on maternal health. And we also find that they don't tend to make referrals to the subspecialist. They just tend to, a lot of them don't make referrals, and they tend to just, if they cannot help the patients, they just give them birth control and painkillers, and that's it. There's no further actions that they recommend the patients to take. And this is very deep systemic issues. Physicians can only spend, because of the way American healthcare system is built. Physicians are often pushed by their administrators to only spend 10 to 20 minutes per patient. And birth control is often the first line of defense. And there is an inefficient ACOG guidelines regarding the fibroids and endometriosis in terms of how to diagnose and how to treat them. And unfortunately, health insurance, they don't compensate well for complex surgeries. So again, which is why it actually creates barriers for women to seek care, because complex surgeries, for example, like endometriosis, oftentimes women have to pay out of pockets. These physicians don't take they don't take insurance at all, so they only take cash. And of course, the lack of research funding for women's health and the lack of scientific innovations. And lastly, the most interesting point that we find out is actually fertility is where oftentimes women find out that they have fibroids or endometriosis or adenomyosis is because they experience infertility due to these conditions. And oftentimes ultrasound is not being used in OBGYN offices. However, when you go to a fertility clinics, the first thing they do is to do an ultrasound on you. And fertility specialists are very motivated to remove any obstacles for pregnancy. And obviously, these conditions are obstacles. And so they will refer you to anybody, anything, in order for you to get pregnant, on top of doing the IVF and IUI treatments. And it is at this point when women are experiencing infertility that they will prioritize their health, unfortunately. So, when we think about why does it take, like, for endometriosis, why does it take 10 years? Like, why do women just suffer in pain for 10 years and bleed heavily and curl up in pain every month? Well, it's because they just deal with it, right? But when it comes to infertility and the time is ticking, they're like, okay, I need to get to the bottom of it. I need to figure out what's wrong with my body. And then boom, they find out that they have these conditions. So there are a lot of issues that we have uncovered during the user research, but like, what does that really mean? Um, Again, there's just a lot of layers in the system that the hardest to solve would be the research. Of course, the government funding, that's really hard to solve, right? Um, Training and guideline, like training physicians and like the ACOG guidelines, again, I don't think technology can help with that. Which I think technology can really help with is the patient awareness and communications, um, between the patients and providers. And the goal is really, if we're looking at the patient care journey, like the before, like we saw the crazy long graphs, like it's really simple. It's like, symptoms onset, right? Patients should be made aware of that their symptoms are not normal. They should not be normalizing their pain and abnormal symptoms, right? They should get referrals from their OBGYN or PCP to a specialist. They can get the diagnosis from the specialist. There should be like communication, education about the symptoms, the findings, of the fibroids, endometriosis, and adenomyosis, like figuring out the treatment plan, etc. And lastly, because there's no sufficient efficient cure for fibroids, for this condition, right? Fibroids, endometriosis, and adenomyosis, there's no cure. I think there's opportunity for holistic care as well. Holistic care meaning, um, like maybe food as medicine, exercise, etc., stress relief. I think there's a lot that we can look into besides the traditional Western medicine. And so this is really a open question, right? Like, how can we take all this research into creating tools, using technology to empower patients? Like maybe we can derive insights from the symptoms, right? So everyone, I think every woman, every girls use, almost every girl and woman use a symptom, a period tracking app. Can we use it to derive insights and educate women? Can we have a, in addition to, empowering physicians to refer one another, can we have a crowdsourced physician directory where it's patient driven? Can we make it like an easy to read report for patients to bring to like OBGYN visits about the symptoms and what they have tried in the past? And, if they try IUD or sort of medications in the past, can they, bring the report, the timeline to physicians so that they can have a more fruitful discussion in that 10 to 20 minutes window? And can we deliver tailored education based on certain diagnoses and certain conditions, right? Like For example, there are research, when we look at holistic, quote unquote, holistic care, there are research that indicate vitamin D, or the lack of vitamin D, contribute to the growth of fibroids. Well, can we, use AI to like dig up all the research and then tailor all these educations based on the diagnosis and so to empower women? So, so let me end with this PSA. So definitely see a OBGYN annually for checkup and advocate for your health. And thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this presentation.
Amazing. I learned so much and also felt super inspired as well. For those of you who are also in the chat, I saw there was so much engagement as well. Feel free to drop some fire emojis in the chat if you all can also enjoyed the session as I did as well. We're gonna head into Q&A. We're gonna head into Q&A. I will give you all time to drop your questions. I'll definitely go ahead and start if you're cool with that. Sounds good? All right. First question. What role can telehealth and remote monitoring play in improving access to care for individuals with reproductive health challenges?
That's a great question. For sure, there's healthcare desert, life food desert.
Mhm.
Based on the user research we have done, is people who tend to live in rural areas, they don't have access
Mm,
to the specialist. Um, for example, big cities tend to have more concentration of specialists.
mhm,
And even if you look outside of the United States, I've talked to actually a number of Canadians, and they
mm.
say the wait time in Canada is so long to
Wow.
see a specialist, and they will come to the US to seek care. Like they actually come to the US to see specialists paying out of pocket.
Wow.
Um, so I think there is quite a lot of opportunities for telehealth because the initial visit, if someone can get their ultrasound or MRI done at like their location and then schedule a telehealth visit with a specialist, yeah, that can definitely help reduce the time to a diagnosis.
Wow. That is an incredible answer. And I would have never thought that folks are applying or going from different countries to come here because of weight and in Canada, that's insane.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and,
no, I mean, like I know, like it's so controversial because like and it's true, like I think everyone knows American healthcare system is awful. Like people
mm,
go bankrupt,
mhm,
um, seeking care. The problem is a condition like endometriosis. Again, a lot of the surgeons who treat endometriosis, they don't take insurance. So either case,
mm,
people pay out of pocket, and so they're like, okay, might as well.
wow.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, Again, excellent question for those who just dropped that. And thanks so much for that answer as well, Michelle. So Marisol has a question. In your research on women's health, did you observe any differences between doctors affiliated with HMOs versus those with PPOs?
That's an interesting question. I have not.
Mm,
Maybe I'll add that into our research questions. No, we have not, to be honest. I'm guessing HMO is like a referral network, right? Like you have
mm,
like one doctor and then you refer like your PCP and then the PCP
mhm,
refer you to other physicians and then PPO I think is where like you can still go see like talk to any physicians. I think that's the
mm,
difference.
mm,
But even in our research, the problem is like physicians just are not referring. Like it's crazy. Like because it, usually like you would think an OB if you see an OBGYN for annual visit and they don't know what's wrong with you because you're bleeding heavily and you're in like pain and you're like taking a week off of work every month, you would think they would just be like, okay, you should I don't know what to do. Like, I will send you to do ultrasound and MRI, and then you should go see this specialist. They're not doing it. So I think with the different health insurance system, neither of them, like none of them is doing
Mm.
anything if the doctors themselves are not doing the referral.
Mm. Wow. Marisol, I hope that answered your question, but also incredible insights as well. We have another question from Darius. What steps have you taken to make sure your participants' information through this process remains secure?
Yeah, we don't take down we use like initials. So like whenever like we take notes on the participant, like we only use the initials.
Mm.
So that's how we make sure it's anonymous. Like even if I go back to my research notes, I'm like, I don't know who's who
Wow.
because we only took down the initials.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
We have another question from Marisol. Was there any mention of language, cultural, or health literacy barriers impacting the quality of OBGYN care that women received?
That's a great question.
Mm.
For sure. So we spoke to a number of I forgot the name, but like they're basically federally funded clinics for like low income neighborhood
Mm.
who are typically serving immigrants. So
Mm.
immigrants who don't speak English, they typically are Spanish speaking or even French speaking because a number of immigrants are coming in from Africa who are French speaking. Um, the funny thing, and we don't have data to back it up, but like the funny I shouldn't say funny, this is not the right word, I'm sorry. The interesting point that we have observed is that they say um, they have never seen fibroids cases or
Mm.
endometriosis cases. And if we think about fibroids affect 1 in 4 women, how is that possible?
Wow.
So that just means that I think is that they are being underdiagnosed by a lot
Wow.
in those settings. And also, um, if we look at, there was a research paper. They say 70% of women who are diagnosed with endometriosis are white women,
Mm.
and but we have no, it's not like fibroids. Fibroids are for sure it affects African American women because maybe there's a correlation. Like I said, there's a vitamin D, like there might be a link, women of color maybe having a harder time absorbing vitamin D, and maybe that kind of cause a link to fibroids growth. Like that's a hypothesis. I'm not a physician.
Mm.
Um, so there is a link for fibroids, but there is no link about ethnicity for endometriosis. So what does that mean? That means that white women who tend to have higher socioeconomic or better access to healthcare, they get
Mm.
diagnosis versus women of color. Yeah.
Mm. That is good. That's good stuff, Michelle. Yes. We have another question that get entered the chat from Ting. Will there be a follow up on your research into folks that have uteruses but don't identify as women, many whom are afraid of seeking care because of the stigma?
That is a great question. Um, I have not dived into that yet. I do know, and that is such an interesting question because you know, and I think I went to ooh, a conference last year, Grace Hopper conference.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Grace Hopper conference, and they actually had a presentation of a uh, um, um, transgender um, male, sorry, transgender female. But basically, she was talking about like there's a lot of even the medical system is not set up in a way that can um how do I say, that can actually accommodate people who are not identified as like strictly women or men,
Mm-hmm.
like like this question, like people who have uteruses but don't identify as women, or
Mm.
vice versa. So oftentimes there are organs that being like not being checked up. So like he gave an example. He was like, well, I'm a man who transitioned into a woman, but I still have my organs,
Mm.
right? But then like the system is not set up for me to do annual checkup for my organs that I no longer identify with and I
Mm.
didn't remove during surgeries. And so that like makes it very interesting.
Mm.
So I have not dived, long story short, I have not dived deeper into this yet, but it would be a very interesting research topic to see
Mm.
like how do we do it and destigmatized this topic.
Mm-hmm. Ting, I hope that answered your question. Very, very powerful question. We have another question from Joanna. I hope I'm saying that right. Which biotechnology slash healthcare companies are investing in this type of research? If you have any privy to that.
That's a great question.
Mm.
I honestly don't know. I should look into this a little bit further. I think there is a lot of interest. Like every single conference, every single endometriosis conference I've gone to is like everyone is like asking for research funding. It's like, where is the research funding? Please fund my projects. Um, Honestly, I'm sure there are a lot of researchers out there, people doing this kind of work, but I don't know.
Mm.
Um, I I myself, I'm self-funding this. I did, you know, do some pitch competition and get some grants to help further this, but like it's all self-funded efforts.
I love that. And this work is so important and so powerful. So, yeah, shout out to that. We have another question from Arti. Did do generally doctors misdiagnose PCOS and endometriosis? I hope I'm saying that endometriosis. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
In your research.
perfect. It's interesting question. I haven't found that in the research. Out of the people I've talked to, I have not found that. The reason I think my hypothesis is
Mm.
PCOS is the inconsistency in your menstrual cycle. So your menstrual cycle is like maybe skip couple of months.
Mm.
And versus endometriosis tend to be regular, but it's just
Mm.
really painful. And so they do their symptoms appear to be different. And also when you dive deep a little bit deeper with ultrasound and MRI, you will figure like, they usually find that, it's very clear pathologically. Again,
Mm.
endometriosis is not that great to be seen on imagery, on like ultrasound or MRI, but they, sometimes they do appear. But I think PCOS can appear, like it would appear very differently. Polycystic ovarian symptoms, it looked very differently than endometriosis in scans. So
Mm.
I haven't found that. But I would definitely do more research and ask that questions in the future.
Awesome. Amazing. We have another question. How do you account for physician bias in patient diagnosis and treatment?
Yeah, physicians bias are everywhere. That's what it is because, like, we found in the research is their bias is based on where they get the training from.
Mm.
And so that and the level of trainings that they've had, right? Like, we mentioned a general OBGYN is going to look at things very differently from a specialist.
Mm.
And so and so it's a very interesting question because they tell if you interview an OBGYN and if you interview a specialist, they tell you exactly opposite things.
Mm.
It's really funny. And so I'll give an example. I think we interview a few general OBGYN and they were like, yeah, we think endometriosis is like overdiagnosed.
Wow.
It's not a problem, it's overdiagnosed. And then like whenever we talk to a specialist, like especially the endometriosis specialist, and they're like so angry, they're like, I don't know why it takes so long for my patients to come see me. Like usually people just suffer for like 10 years before like they finally come to me. Like,
Wow.
why does it take so long? You know, it's like two different perspectives. So yeah.
Wow. This is wow. I hope that also answered your question, Antonio. I'm learning so much. I have I guess, my last two questions. And if anyone else has questions, we invite you all in the chat to drop them in. But as you've been in this space, like you said, self-funding this incredible project, this incredible work, um, how have you seen technology empower even like geriatric patients to become more informed and active participants in their own reproductive healthcare?
It's interesting. I've seen like recently I have seen because I mentioned I'm in a lot of support groups. And so
Mhm.
like recently I've seen a lot of people like I asked ChatGPT to like give me like a list of things I can do to manage my symptoms. And then like they'll paste this like ChatGPT output in the group and then share with everyone. Um, and which is great and which is sad because physicians should be the one giving this information, not ChatGPT.
Mhm.
Um, where the physicians, like the last thing we want as a society is that we further alienate, like now patients are not going to talk to their physician because they're just going to use the
Mhm.
ChatGPT and like the last thing we want is like patients don't even trust the doctors anymore, right?
Mm. That
Um, I don't know, honestly.
wow. And I think that's fair. That is fair. You know, to go from a time where, the majority of information would have been with a doctor in a medical institution, and now having technology, right? Generative AI
Yeah.
give you suggestions. Like just thinking about like, wow, things are definitely changing. But to your point, you would expect and would desire that to come from your physician. So yeah, a lot of work there. Here's my final question. How has your experience with working with diverse organizations like the UN, and even Goldman Sachs, or even Chief, shaped your perspective on user needs, specifically when it comes to creating impactful technology?
Yeah. So I do want to step back a little bit. I started my career at Goldman as a software engineer, so I wasn't really like a design person back then. And so yeah, so and we were like doing data for hedge fund clients, like that was like who cares?
Hilarious.
Sorry, my old boss. I'm so sorry. Um,
Mhm.
uh, um, but with with the UN, yeah, we work on a website for them, and then with Chief, I was their lead product designer for the app and the website. And so I think it's interesting because the different organizations, and they're very different, right? They're different industries, different sizes. And I think that, you know, it all comes down to um, when you work in, when you work in a really big corporations, there's a structure like inertia that you kind of have to follow. Like, things are just kind of the way it is. You don't really disrupt things. You don't really like, you know, they do innovate as the best as they could, but like things are kind of set in stones versus something like Chief. It was so fun because we got to interview our members, Chief members, to
Wow.
come up with products that serve them, right? Versus, yeah, in a bigger company, you can't do that. And that's what really drew me to doing more smaller like work,
Mhm.
because I think that's the impact that we can make as technologists, as
Mhm.
designers. And I really hope that people can the audience here can, I know, job security aside, I totally understand that. Big corporation has bigger pay, bigger packages, better structure and everything. But, if you do want to change the quote unquote change the world and make users' lives better, definitely go for the startups, go for the small nonprofits, or even make your own projects. You see a problem that you want to solve and maybe make it a side project.
Mm, that is
Yeah.
so beautiful. Oh, sound like poetry. Sound like
Just like
poetry.
Chanel, just like Chanel. Look at
Oh,
her. Look at the community that you have built.
thank you,
Yes.
Michelle. I
Mm-hmm.
saw the problem, attack the
Yes.
problem.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So I know we're almost at time. Would love for you to share a little bit more about how folks can continue to follow you, the work that you're doing, and all of the above.
Yeah, you can. My website is very. I'm in the process of redesigning it. It's never finished, right? But I'll paste a my LinkedIn link here. You can feel free to mm, oh, can I paste a LinkedIn link here?
Oh, you might have to put
Oh,
it in
no.
our private chat, and then I
Okay,
can,
sure.
yeah,
Sounds
and I'll
good.
share.
Yeah,
Uh,
you can. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to message me.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing. We love that. I'm going to go ahead and
Mhm.
just copy this wonderful link and drop this in the chat. I do see other questions coming through. I want you all to feel free to reach out to Michelle, connect with her, and continue the conversations there. She obviously, as you all can see, she's incredible. Um, and we just really appreciate you, Michelle, for being a part of this series and also just sharing your passion project, your wonderful, impactful work, and honestly, how it's changing the lives of others. We really appreciate your heart um, and just your energy towards it and just your thoughtfulness. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
You're
Thank
so
you,
welcome.
Chanel.
You're so welcome. So just wishing you a wonderful night. And then I'll just go ahead and continue to do some announcements. Alrighty. Bye,
Thank
Michelle.
you. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
As you all saw, listen, we have some incredible individuals a part of these series, and we're so grateful to have had Michelle. Please make sure that you go ahead to this wonderful link here and go and add her. Make sure you put in the notes that you are coming from a Mentor Me Collective and that you enjoyed the session and would love to follow up. I know Marisol and Antonio and a couple of others had more questions. Feel free to lean into that as well. Just want to say again, thank you all for joining us for this incredible and really important workshop on leveraging technology to solve reproductive health challenges. I want to say, again, we really hope this session inspired you and provided valuable insights into the power of user-centered design in healthcare. This month is our theme is Tech Your Wellness. So we want to embrace physical health and also mental health as well. Just want to again encourage you all. I know the job market is rough for those of you who are looking. Just make sure you give yourself some grace, show some kindness towards yourself. And of course, we'll be back with another workshop next Wednesday, same time, same place, as we continue this theme to Tech Your Wellness. Be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already done so. Again, take care, and we want to continue to support innovation for better health. Bye, everyone.